Well, and another one of the ones that I know that our listeners and well, anybody who's followed this fellow's story over the last few years is not going to want to miss. We get all kinds of people always asking us about what's going on with Billy Jack Haynes. And now we're going to find out on TV on Vice with Dark Side of the Ring. And you've got a number of illuminating talking heads in this one too.
Yeah, Billy Jack Haynes, man. It's funny, like when we started, I think maybe season 2 or 3, somewhere in there, we were always oddly compelled and fascinated by his shoot interviews because they were so wildly crazy, and the things that he would, espouse and the sort of conspiracies he would put out there and just
confess to even.
Right. And putting himself at the center of certain things and his look. I mean, just you can't ignore how he looked in those interviews with the hair and the scars and everything. It was such a wild look. But I think it was, I'm trying to remember the chain of events, but I think it was when we were doing the Tales from the Territories show. We were doing a Portland episode and we reached out to him to be a part of that. It didn't quite work out, but I believe at some point he reached out to us, I think after, the alleged homicide that's happened now that people I'm sure are aware of, about him telling us, about him wanting to tell his story on our show. So it was this kind of wild thing where he came to us and wanting to talk for this show. So then that was obviously very compelling to us given everything that's going on. But as we know, this has not gone to trial yet. So there is a limit to the things in that he can talk about specifically, but we were able to essentially arrange, or we were a interview with him behind bars, which was wild. So this is our first sort of prison interview that we've done on the show.
You knew when you got into the television business, it was going to take you places.
I guess that's a bucket list thing. I don't know, but it was fascinating. And, with Billy Jack Haynes
in the same month, you went to my house and prison.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It happened.
But that's the thing is that
sometimes I go from Vince Russo's living room to then your living room.
Now wait a minute. If you didn't tell me that, or I would have had a decontaminator here with the fog you down, for heaven's sake. Now
that's happened once or twice before.
From now on, I'm going to make you strip naked and put a hazmat suit on when you come in. But no, the question, the question here that everybody who had ever known Billy Jack or been around Billy Jack, just, way back in the day, or be even a fan of Billy Jack, watch him on TV, and then would see that gray-haired, beetle haircutted, Muppet-looking character it just be a raving batshit fucking crazy as a rainbow trout in a car wash.
Yeah.
Everybody, the question was, what the fuck happened to Billy Jack Haynes and when did this take place? The accident, brain injury, safe fall on his head?
Yeah.
What insight were you able to derive from what the fuck happened to Billy Jack Haynes?
Well, one of the just difficult / frustrating aspects of his story is trying to get to the truth. There's so much of not knowing what's true. You go down one path, sort of, realizing, oh, this is a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of, this is totally untrue. And then you talk to somebody else that, no, actually he did have connections to the world of underground criminal activity, and there is someone who can speak factually about that, So it is, this episode does remind me in a lot of ways of our Marty Jannetty episode from season 4, in that I think, I don't know, this is maybe my personal opinion, but it's like for Billy Jack to kind of I think he also had a pretty quick rise to success, out of the gate.
Oh yeah.
And was put in that position. And I'm sure that was a difficult thing for him to walk away from, just in terms of that adulation, the spotlight, whatever, celebrity, whatever. And
it wasn't hard for him to walk out on a promoter, though.
That's true. Right. Of course. Yeah. But I think it's like that idea of still trying to remain relevant and still trying to insert yourself into the headlines and maintaining that. And I think for him, that is, something that he would do with his provocative interviews and the things he would come out and say, to get that attention. But yeah, I also think there's, a lot of people that we interviewed talk about his sort of manipulative side, that he had a kind of, he was very manipulative to a lot of people in terms of getting what he wanted and what he wanted people to do and say and think. And he could be a very violent person as well. So this episode is kind of our journey into trying to answer that question, and to try to figure out like what life events, what things have happened to shape this person into this unspeakable, unthinkable crime that has taken place. And to try to put that all together, but also separating fact from fiction, because so much of his story is unknown to a lot of people, even in the industry who knew him. Like what's true and what's not, so it is kind of, I would say it's similar to the Marty Jannetty story in that way.
That's the 1985 Billy Jack. I can see being a guy who could talk you into things, and the look of him and the body and he had a tone to his voice, and he could manipulate somebody to doing something. I can't see the 2020 version of Billy Jack Haynes being to talk somebody into spitting on the sidewalk.
Well, maybe not 2020, but when I can't remember what year, maybe it was 2018, I think, when he did come out with the Boys on the Track story, this.
Yeah. Did he ever give you any type of indication that even he knew, even if he was trying to make you believe something, that he knew that he comes off like a raving fucking lunatic? Is he aware of that and trying to just steamroller through it? Or does he think that people are looking at him like that he doesn't have steaming turds hanging out of his mouth?
Well, my point is, though, that the families of the victims of that Boys on the Track story, for those who don't know, it was this story. I think it happened I want to say it was the 80s. Yeah, it was the 80s, I think. When he was
West Memphis, Arkansas.
Exactly, where there was a drug deal that went wrong and these kids were biking by and they saw it, and then Billy Jack alleges that him and his accomplices tied them to the tracks and they were found dead on train tracks, and it was a big news story at the time. And but Billy Jack came out, I think in the late 2010s, with the story, coming out, taking responsibility that I was there and I was part of this. It's tied to the Clintons, it's tied.
Because the drug deal was supposedly orchestrated by Bill Clinton.
Oh yeah, he got phone calls directly from Bill. Kill the kids, or whatever. I'm paraphrasing. But basically, yeah. So, but like he did insert himself with the real victims' families. So he was communicating with the victims' families and getting them to believe he was there and part of it.
And also, and wasn't his story why were you there? If this was some kind of drug deal, it was supposed to be done in the dark in West Memphis, Arkansas, on a train tracks. You're a television star. He said he was wearing a wrestling mask and he was there to shoot video.
Yep.
So they'd have proof in case anything went wrong or what. What the fuck? So nobody's going to notice this giant man in a fucking lucha mask with a camcorder attending this goddamn drug summit here. I'm sorry. I just get outraged at least come up with a good fucking story. But, and then wasn't there someone now with the modern research, the date that the murder happened, he was booked to wrestle in fucking Rhode Island or some shit?
I think so. Something like that. Yeah. So, yeah, but then like you hear that story, and then as preposterous as it sounds, right, which it is, but you then hear a story with photographic evidence of him getting involved in local mob types in Portland, who had financed his. You remember when he tried to go up against Don Owens up there, his own promotion, and apparently the money from that was kind of sketch. And he was like beaten up like to like an inch of his life or something. And there's a journalist that's in the episode who talks about that and was also just fascinated by Billy Jack in terms of trying to separate fact from fiction. But here's these pictures of him, being beaten in the hospital, for his connection to organized crime. So it's like there is some connection that he has.
Well, maybe if he wouldn't go screaming from the rooftops every crook that he works for, they wouldn't keep beating him up.
I guess so.
He loose lips sink ships.
Right. Yeah.